reconciliation with the terrorist group. Sabahi launches his campaign from Upper Egypt by saying, "We shall not allow a system to feed us and take away our freedom." And poetic verses from poet Abdurrahman al-Abnoudi, Musa, Shafi, Zidan, Halafawi, and Asr Yassin, topping the list of the participants. This same issue is echoed by another headline, but from Al Masri Al-Yawm this time, where we continue. The presidential race has started. Al-Sisi talks to youth, and Sabahi launches his campaign from Asyut. The Supreme Election Commission gives the Field Marshal the symbol of the star. Al-Sisi says the army belongs to the Egyptians and not to a certain person. Sabahi inaugurates his campaign from Upper Egypt, and Sabahi says no place for the remnants of the Brotherhood in the new era. Field Marshal Abdel Fattah al-Sisi plans mega projects to put an end to poverty and unemployment. Finally, regarding this topic, from Al-Yawm Al-Saba, Al-Sisi meets with a delegation representing media figures and says, "I carry no favors for anyone, whether in Egypt or elsewhere, and Egyptians are the real magical power." Sabahi launches his campaign from the governorate of late President Gamal Abdel Nasser. The presidential hopeful says, "My program includes combating poverty." A lot of topics, a lot of issues, and here we are starting the campaign with the two candidates their own way. First, let me speak first about Field Marshal Abdel Fattah al-Sisi and what he calls the E-campaign from Twitter and with meeting with the media figures. How do you see those two elements as a start?
No, let us really compare what each one of them was saying first.
Okay.
Because, look, it's good that they have started on time, which was determined by the election committee to be starting when? Starting May the 2nd, okay?
Yep.
Though Sabahi has committed some mistakes, as you know.
Violations.
Violations, yeah. Yes, to the regulations set forth by the committee. However, I do not want too many promises. You remember what Morsi gave us, the bird of development whom we've never seen, and we made many jokes about them. Besides, let's really point out something quite important. What are the authorities of the president with the coming of the new constitution? How much does it constitute really for those two candidates to work on? It has been restricted, as you know, to be only 30%. The 70% would go to whom?
The Prime Minister.
Actually, the Parliament and
the Prime Minister.
The government.
Yep.
Okay, which will stem from the majority in the Parliament. So, in fact, what they are promising cannot really be fulfilled because there is no absolute authority granted to the president, as was at the time of Mubarak and at the time of Morsi. We saw Morsi even going much further to go into doing
I was asking the way they started their campaigns.
I like the beginning of Sabahi to come from Upper Egypt. Okay. Because this is very tactful, very strategic to start from Upper Egypt. Remember, we always claim that Upper Egypt was neglected by both systems, whether it be during the time of the Brotherhoods or prior to that at the time of Mubarak, on one hand. But I like what Sisi said, okay, with regard to the army belonging to Egyptians.
The people.
And we've seen it twice, actually, in 3 years, when Tantawi sided with the army to the Egyptians and not to Mubarak, and when El-Sisi himself, you know, sided with the Egyptians. And besides, it proves that the army has no impact upon the upcoming elections, though Abdel Fattah al-Sisi was what? the leader, the commander
Defense
in
Minister
chief
and
commander.
the General Commander.
Yes, the general commander of the Egyptian army. And also, okay, saying that the will of the Egyptian people is the magic stick. I like the word because, honestly, truly, if you are not backed by the people, what will you do?
Nothing.
Exactly.
Yep. Nothing.
And so it is the people who have removed Morsi and the people to a lesser extent, not as much as on June 30th, but the people also participated and took action against and they have put down the prior system, which is the system of Mubarak.
Ma'am, I'm sorry for interrupting you, but here, before leaving this point, if you permit me, people around the president, whoever is he, are very important. And the mischoice of people around the president,
I was going to talk to you about
that. Was
because
one of the main elements behind the fall of the two previous regimes. Because of this, I was asking you about the start of those campaigns, because this is the choice of people around Hamdin and this is the choice of people in the campaign of Sisi. Those, I mean, they preferred to start from the ground in Asyut, and those preferred to start an campaign and to meet first with the media. Those are two different ways of thinking, to which...
Not essentially, mind you, because if I had been in one of the campaigns, especially of Marshal Sisi, Field Marshal Sisi, I would have taken the opposite. If I found Hamadin going to Upper Egypt, I would start with Lower Egypt, okay? It's quite understood. It's a tactic. I wouldn't go to the same place, you know? It's not really desired. But also, you know, the campaign of al-Sisi raised many issues because some said they come from the time of Mubarak, and the same was said about Hamdin having, you know,
war of words.
Exactly.
And war of words is not for the sake of anybody now.
No. And besides, you know, jokes have been made about...
Those are Egyptians, doctor.
No, Hamadin's campaign is talking about the Sisi, and al-Sisi is talking about himself. So actually, who's talking about Sabah? So it's really, you know, when you attack, you know, your opponent, I wouldn't go to low words. I wouldn't go to humiliation, personal humiliation. It has nothing to do with personal issues, mind you. It has to do with my love for this country, and that's why I am trying to become the president of this country. And mind you, al-Sisi did not by himself go and volunteer to become the president.
Let me be more specific, echoing what you have just said. Al-Sisi, does he need to go for popular conferences?
No.
Or his popularity would prevent this from happening, at least for some security reasons? Because it's going to be so crowded, and no one, no one would be able to protect him.
Nermeen.
Yeah.
In order to stop the presidential race, if I cannot get al-Sisi, I will try to get Sabah. Okay. So actually, I'm quite worried about the coming few days, in which both of them will try.
Only few days?
I'm always worried about Egypt. Okay. And mind you that we are living in a disastrous situation, to be honest, security-wise.
On the ground.
Security-wise, yes, of course. And I mean, what are we going to do in the coming few years is very, very important. We have to restore security. We have to get rid of those terrorist groups that are surrounding us from all sides, whether it be east or west or south, okay? But I like what I did actually, that both of them, you know, in order to be addressing to both, to everybody in the society, to come up and say, we are not going to get the brotherhoods inside the system, and both of them said so. But however, each one of them was somehow making a hint that nobody will be not included or excluded from the political process. No, we want it to be spelled out, you know,
How to
openly.
differentiate, man, between terrorists and those whose hands are mixed all the time with the blood of Egyptians,
Exactly.
and those who are
Exactly.
brainwashed, especially those,
Exactly.
for instance, undergraduate students who were there in many of our universities, 19 or 20 years old, and they have nothing in mind to do
Mind you.
except being that they are in a jihad, unfortunately.
Exactly. And that's how they lose their lives and threaten people's lives, okay? And kill every day one of the police, one of the army.
Okay.
So, mind you, Nermeen, the retreat of the role of the government in the various governorates,
To enforce law, that's it.
not just to enforce law, but we have to fight with our brains the idea of being an extremist, the idea of jihad, okay? We haven't done anything about that. We've been
Ma'am,
tackling
as I
the
said,
problem.
There is a very thin thread between a
Exactly.
terrorist who knew well that he is doing this and he
The
is
leaders,
paid and
the
he is a
leaders,
mercenary,
Mary.
to be accurate, and there are
Exactly.
people
Do
who
we
are
have
very
the
much
the
naive,
free
at
army?
least. No,
What-
we don't have this.
Exactly.
We don't have those,
But I like, okay.
sects, I may say.
Yeah, I like what you know. You see the tactic between Hamadin and Field Marshal Sisi. Hamadin is adopting the same ideas of Nasser.
Ma'am, don't you think that this is too early? I mean, it's too
No,
early to
if
judge.
I-
It's only one day starting the presidential
Fine,
campaign.
But mind you, what I say as a presidential, candidate, okay, if I tell you I'm fighting poverty, it reminds or it rings bell of Nasser.
Sure.
But I mean, Hamadin is not President Nasser. Neither is Al-Sisi.
Yep.
But the courage of Al-Sisi has
Proved
put him-
itself on the ground.
has proven itself. Besides, it puts him or reminded him without saying, I am
Yep.
in it.
In actions, not words.
In action, not words. And did you see that the concentration of Hamadin saying, I will give one Fadan
And 10 Egyptian, 10,000 Egyptian
where
pounds.
from?
I don't know.
We are suffering economically. If I come forth and say something like that, knowing that 40% of the Egyptians are at the range that he is mentioning to be granting them 10,000, where from, Hamadin? Be cautious. Be
And the one fed in the heart of the deserts, or it's going to be supplied with, or the infrastructure services.
Exactly.
Anyhow.
And mind you, no, let me just say what Sisi is very much tackling. Sisi knows that he can fight terrorists. He has been doing that
Already.
for the past, actually, 1 year. Okay? But his